My name is Victoria, and I'm 32 years old. 6 years ago, I made the best decision of my life. I chose my unborn daughter over the manipulative man who wanted to control my fortune. Today, while I'm raising a brilliant little girl in a Malibu mansion, he's working as a security guard for minimum wage. The contrast wasn't always this stark. The surgery was over, and the nurse wheeled me out of the delivery room with a warm smile. Congratulations. Mother and baby are both healthy. It's a beautiful girl. But Ryan Zhang's expression showed no joy whatsoever. His voice was cold and flat when he said, "Victoria, we need to talk. The baby was your decision to keep. You'll be raising her on your own from now on. Don't expect help from anyone else. My mother doesn't owe you anything." I nodded calmly. Is there anything else? Ryan seemed surprised by my composure. He continued, "Also, you need to adjust that spending habit of yours. Buy clothes when you need them, but stop with the expensive cosmetics and treatments. You're a mother, now you need to learn responsibility and frugality." Hearing this, I felt no surprise at all. I'd understood exactly what kind of family I was dealing with for quite some time. During my last prenatal appointment, Ryan's mother had taken the ultrasound image around town, asking everyone she could find to confirm the baby's gender. When she learned it was a girl, her face immediately fell. Girls are just a financial burden. The first child absolutely must be a boy. She demanded I get an abortion. When I refused, she secretly approached my doctor, offering bribes to perform the procedure without my consent. The physician scolded her harshly. "What century do you think this is? Gender discrimination is illegal, and we have responsibilities to both the mother and the child." As Ryan finished speaking, the nurse's smile became visibly strained. I remained perfectly calm and nodded. Understood. Seeing my reasonable response, Ryan's expression finally softened slightly. "I can only take half the day off. I have to be back at work this afternoon. Rest well, and I'll visit tomorrow." The nurse couldn't help but interject. "Your wife just had major surgery. It would be better if family stayed to help with." I cut her off gently but knowingly. "It's fine. Work comes first. Go ahead, nurse. Could you please take me to my recovery room?" The upper floor of this private hospital featured a luxury postpartum care center. I'd already booked their premium package. 6 nannies and nurses stood ready to attend to my every need. I gathered them all and gave clear instructions. "Your job is very simple. First, provide excellent care for me and my baby. Second, no one except me is allowed near the child. Especially anyone claiming to be my husband or mother-in-law, absolutely do not let them approach." I could be so calm because I'd made my decision long ago. The moment my daughter was born would also be the moment I cut all ties with that family forever. I slept peacefully and comfortably at the maternity center that night. The next morning, Ryan called, his voice as irritable as usual. "Private hospitals are expensive. If there's nothing wrong, discharge yourself immediately. I'm busy with year-end work and don't have time to pick you up. Take the bus home." At that moment, I was leaning against plush pillows, sipping nutrient-rich soup prepared by a specialist, while listening to a nurse explain various postpartum recovery packages. I replied leisurely, "No rush. I'm staying for the full month of confinement care before going home." Ryan's voice sharpened. "How long are you planning to stay there? Do you know how much a month costs?" I smiled. $200,000. Just charged it to my card. The receipt's still warm. "Want to see it?" The explosion on the other end was immediate. I said, "We couldn't afford a new car, and you claimed we didn't have money. Now you're spending $200,000 on a maternity center. "Victoria, have you lost your mind? Return that money immediately and come home." I couldn't be bothered with his hysterical ranting. I simply hung up and tossed my phone aside. The truth was, from the moment I'd chosen this hospital for delivery, Ryan and I had already had this fight. He thought private hospitals were unnecessarily expensive and completely wasteful. My mother gave birth to me without even going to a hospital. Didn't cost a penny. How many women give birth does anyone make such a fuss like you, acting so weak and demanding? I'd said simply, "I'm paying for it myself." Ryan's expression immediately changed. "When will you get rid of this wasteful spending habit? You'd better hand over your bank card for me to manage. If I let you handle this household, we'll be bankrupt sooner or later." All my savings were in a single bank account. Ryan didn't know the exact amount, but he'd been eyeing it for months. Sometimes he'd say he wanted to upgrade his car. Other times he'd mention investment opportunities or claim his best friend needed an emergency loan for a life-or-death situation. Each time, I'd found ways to politely refuse. He'd become furious, threatening me, "From now on, I won't give you a single dollar. Want to raise the baby? Figure it out yourself." He thought he could use money to control me. What he didn't understand was that money was the one thing I'd never lacked in my life. I'm the only child of a successful family in San Francisco. My parents built their fortune in tech investments and real estate, not generational wealth, but they'd accumulated a substantial portfolio over the decades. They adored me and spared no expense on my education and upbringing. I didn't disappoint them. I was intellectually gifted as a child and developed strong business instincts as an adult, eventually taking over significant portions of the family operations. The only thing that concerned my parents was my approach to relationships. When I was nearing 30 and still single, they began to worry. They enrolled me in the most exclusive matchmaking service in California. Complete with background checks and compatibility assessments, Ryan Zhang was one of their premium candidates. 2 years younger than me, 6'2", well-educated, and steadily employed, my parents approved. Even though he comes from a single-parent household, he seems hard-working and ambitious. As long as you two are happy together, that's what matters. Ryan and I did have a genuinely sweet period at the beginning. When we were first dating, he was gentle and attentive, making me believe I'd found real love, until I became pregnant in my 5th month. That's when his true nature emerged. Perhaps feeling that he'd secured me completely, he stopped pretending. He said, "You have to give birth to a son before we can register our marriage. The Zhang family line cannot end with me." He said, "Women need to know how to endure hardship. That's what brings good fortune." My mother worked in the fields until her 7th and 8th months of pregnancy. He said, "When you marry, you follow your husband. You need to abandon that spoiled rich girl attitude if you want to be worthy of entering my family." This transformation left me both shocked and furious. I fought with him, cried, made scenes, but Ryan had become a completely different person, aggressive, volatile, speaking in tones that suggested he might become violent at any moment. I'd considered ending things while I still could, terminating the pregnancy and starting fresh, but my doctor told me something that changed everything. Due to my specific health condition, this pregnancy might be my only chance to have a child. After many sleepless nights of consideration, I made my decision. I would have this baby. The child carried my blood. Why shouldn't she belong to me alone? Ryan thought he could use the pregnancy to control me, to keep me trapped. He had no idea I'd long been preparing myself mentally. keep the child, lose the father. 30 minutes later, a staff member from the maternity center knocked on my door. "There's a man claiming to be your husband here to see you." I shook my head. "I'm not married. I don't have a husband. He must be an imposter." "Absolutely. Don't let him in." I knew Ryan would come, but I wasn't worried. I'd chosen this facility specifically for its strict security and absolute privacy policies. As long as I didn't give permission, Ryan would never step foot in my room. I'd chosen tolerance before, only because I was heavily pregnant and didn't want complications during the final months. But now, my daughter was safely born. It was time to cut all ties with that family completely. I called my parents to let them know I'd delivered early a baby girl. Both were surprised and immediately wanted to fly down from San Francisco, but I told them directly, "Mom, Dad, I've broken up with Ryan. I'm planning to raise the baby myself. I made this decision without consulting you first, and I'm sorry." The truth was, I'd made this decision much earlier. I just hadn't wanted to worry them by revealing it sooner. My mother's voice became panicked over the phone. "Victoria, has he been mistreating you?" My father was more decisive. "If you're breaking up, then break up. There's nothing major about it. From now on, our granddaughter will take our family name and be registered under our household," under my parents' insistence. A few days later, I returned home with my nanny and nurse. I briefly explained what Ryan had done. My mother gripped my hand tightly, tears streaming. "No wonder you've been looking so thin lately. You've been enduring all this." I smiled helplessly. "How can you tell I'm thin, Mom?" Even while pregnant, I'd never neglected my self-care. With expert nutritionists and recovery specialists attending to me during my confinement month, I actually looked more radiant than before giving birth. My father spoke with deep regret. "It's my fault for not seeing through someone like Ryan Zhang, a wolf in sheep's clothing." I shook my head. "You can't blame yourself, Dad. He was just an excellent actor." Ryan's placement on the matchmaking service's premium candidate list wasn't without reason. Master's degree, homeowner, car owner, salary over 6 figures on paper. He looked like a high-quality man, but only through actual relationship experience did I discover that appearances could be completely deceiving. Ryan had grown up in a single-parent household. His father had abandoned his family when Ryan was young, running off with another woman. His older sister had dropped out of school early to get married and was now struggling with her 3rd child. His mother suffered from various chronic conditions requiring constant medication. Ryan's salary had to cover his mother's medical expenses, support his sister and brother-in-law, plus his own mortgage and car payments, leaving him financially strained every month. Despite knowing all this, I'd never calculated or kept score. When you're family, why worry about such things? As long as we truly loved each other, I was ready to provide financial support. After all, I'd never lacked money, but what I hadn't expected was how skilled Ryan was at deception. He'd targeted my identity as a wealthy only child from San Francisco, presenting himself as gentle and caring to make me fall for the sweet illusion of romance. He thought having a child would trap me permanently, but he'd seriously overestimated his own value. I had the ability to support myself. I wasn't the type of woman who couldn't survive without a man. I brought my trusted nannies and nurses home with me. With their help, my parents could also relax somewhat. The baby lay wrapped in her blankets, chubby-cheeked and adorable, waving her tiny hands and making sweet gurgling sounds. My mother laughed with delight. "Oh my goodness! This little face looks exactly like you did as a baby. Victoria, My father leaned in to look. It really does. Especially those eyes, they're identical to yours. The house filled with laughter and warmth. We were enjoying our family bliss on one side, while on the other side, Ryan was starting to lose his composure. Throughout this entire period, Ryan hadn't contacted me once. I knew he was waiting for me to cave first. Ideally, I would cry pitifully, admit my mistakes, hand over all my savings, and kneel to beg his forgiveness. But he waited and waited. I remained completely silent. Finally, unable to bear it anymore, he called, "Victoria Chen, have you caused enough trouble?" I laughed. "Who is this?" Ryan was so angry he could barely speak. "I'm your husband, the father of your child." I was gently rocking my daughter while responding slowly. "You shouldn't make statements without evidence. I'm still single. Where would I get a husband?" Ryan and I had never officially registered our marriage. When I first learned I was pregnant, I'd proactively suggested we marry soon. But Ryan had avoided the topic repeatedly. "It's cold lately, and you're pregnant, you shouldn't be traveling around. Let's wait until after the birth. Then we can have a double celebration." But once he learned the baby was a girl, he immediately showed his true colors. "My mother says we only register the marriage after you give birth to a son. If you won't abort, then we'll just continue like this." Ryan had assumed I'd be forced to compromise. After all, according to social conventions, being pregnant and unmarried was still considered shameful. But what he'd miscalculated was his own worth. Ryan thought he was offering me an honorable way out. Never expecting this kind of response, he was furious, losing all reason, and began hurling vicious words. "Victoria Chen, if you apologize now, there might still be time to fix this. Otherwise, don't expect to ever set foot in the Zhang household again. You've already had the baby. What other man would want you now?" He thought he'd identified my fatal weakness. But honestly, I just wanted to laugh. I'd never considered men essential to my existence. Otherwise, how could I have lived contentedly until nearly 30 before even considering dating? Choosing to keep the child and lose the father wasn't an impulsive decision. It was something I'd thought through very carefully. Without Ryan, I was perfectly capable of raising my daughter into a wonderful person, both materially and emotionally. I could provide her with the very best. I played along with his assumptions, deliberately provoking him further. "Who says no one wants me? I own 5 properties, 3 cars, and have over 6 million in my accounts. With that kind of dowry, how could I possibly worry about finding a husband?" Ryan knew I had money, but he hadn't realized how much. When we'd first met through the matchmaking service, and later during our courtship, I'd quickly recognized his insecurity about finances. To avoid hurting his fragile ego, I deliberately downplayed my economic situation. Ironically, this allowed me to see his true nature. My words hit Ryan like a sledgehammer, leaving him so stunned he didn't know how to respond. He ground his teeth. "I don't believe it. Where would you get that kind of money?" I shrugged casually. "Believe it or not, that's up to you. Haven't you been to my family's house? Why don't you check local real estate prices first?" Ryan had always considered himself exceptional, academically gifted from childhood, graduated from a prestigious university, found good employment, bought property and a car, established himself in the city. In many people's eyes, he truly was outstanding, but the gap between Ryan and me wasn't something personal effort alone could bridge. For example, my family's estate in San Francisco, even though it wasn't in the most expensive district, each square foot was worth 6 figures. With Ryan's salary, he probably couldn't afford it in several lifetimes. As they say, to kill, aim for the heart. I wanted him to see clearly the unbridgeable chasm between us. That evening, Ryan called me again. This time, his tone and attitude had softened considerably. Perhaps after checking property values, he'd begun reassessing my worth and changed his approach to sweet manipulation. Victoria, I've thought it over. This situation is both our faults. We were both too hot-headed. But regardless, you shouldn't have taken the baby and left like that. My mother's been crying at home, missing her granddaughter. How about this? Let's meet and discuss this properly. It sounded very reasonable, very mature, but I knew better than anyone what the truth was. From the moment he learned the pregnancy was a girl, Ryan and his mother had been of one mind, united on the same front. He was an only son, and the Zhang family line couldn't end with his generation. If I wouldn't abort, then so be it. But since I hadn't produced a son, I shouldn't dream of entering their household. But apparently Ryan had developed amnesia. He'd completely forgotten everything he'd said before. He declared confidently, no matter how much money you have, in a family, the father's role is most important. A father's love is something no amount of money can replace. I burst out laughing. Really? Then I'd better hurry up and find my daughter a stepfather. Thanks for the reminder. I'll register on dating apps immediately. Ryan scoffed. A woman with a child. You think any man would be interested in you? I laughed even harder. They don't have to look at me. They can look at my money. Anyone willing to marry me gets 2 houses and a car immediately. Who in this world complains about having too much money? After saying this, I hung up despite his furious shouting on the other end. I figured Ryan would be losing sleep tonight. The next morning, the concierge of our gated community called to inform me, Miss Chen, there's a man named Ryan Zhang here looking for you. I'd expected Ryan would track me down, but I hadn't anticipated he'd arrive this quickly. After all, today was a work day, and for someone like Ryan, taking unpaid leave hurt more than a physical blow. Regardless, I had no intention of seeing him. Everything Ryan had displayed before the politeness, the gentleness had all been an act. His true nature was volatile and aggressive, potentially even dangerous. I didn't want to put myself at unnecessary risk. I instructed the front desk. I don't know anyone named Ryan Zhang. It's almost New Year's. There are a lot of scammers around. Everyone be careful not to let strangers in. Just minutes later, my phone rang again. Ryan. His voice was tight with fury. Victoria Chen, don't push your luck. Do you know how much I spent on the plane ticket to find you? Over $1,000. Aren't you just throwing a tantrum because I haven't married you yet? If you'd been sensible and given me a son, would we be dealing with this mess? Ryan was a graduate degree holder, supposedly among the highly educated. Of course he knew that a baby's gender is primarily determined by the father, but he deliberately used this as an excuse just to humiliate me. I couldn't be bothered arguing with him and hung up decisively. While I was at it, I blocked his number. I thought if I just ignored him, he'd eventually give up and leave. But less than half an hour later, I received a call from the police department. The officer asked, "Do you know someone named Ryan Zhang? He's filed a report claiming you've kidnapped his daughter and is demanding you return the child." At the police station's request, I went in for direct mediation. It had been over 2 months since I'd last seen Ryan. He'd gained some weight, but his attitude remained as arrogant as ever, chin up, looking down at people through half-closed eyes. He announced, "Victoria Chen, I'm not here to argue with you. If you still want to live decently with me, go home and apologize to my mother. Say you're sorry. Maybe she'll soften and allow us to register our marriage. But you need to quickly have another child this time. It absolutely must be a boy. Also, those houses and businesses of yours need to be transferred into my name. Even the police officer glanced at him incredulously after hearing this. But Ryan remained completely oblivious to the problem. Instead, his eyes suddenly fixed on the phone in my hand, and he exploded. Victoria Chen, you bought another new phone. When will you stop this habit of throwing money away like garbage? Do you know my mother is still using the old phone I discarded 3 years ago? Perhaps due to his family background. Ryan was particularly sensitive about money. I'd previously tried to spare his fragile ego by accommodating his pride. But now, I only wished I could grind him into the dirt. I laughed coldly and shot back. Your mother using an old phone is because you're useless. It has nothing to do with me. Ryan immediately turned speechless, his eyes bulging, face red, neck veins popping. The officer urged us to stay calm and asked about our relationship. I answered truthfully, we dated for a while, then broke up due to irreconcilable differences. Ryan laughed bitterly. Broke up? That's rich. You've had my child. What other man would want you? Victoria Chen, I'm giving you a ladder to climb down. If you know what's good for you, don't make this bigger than it needs to be. When you lose face completely, you'll have nowhere to hide. I looked straight into his eyes calmly. Who told you the baby is yours? I'd consulted with lawyers. In cases of unmarried single mothers, the child automatically takes the mother's surname and is registered under the mother's household. If Ryan wanted to establish paternity, he'd need DNA test results. But as long as I, the child's mother, didn't consent, he had no right to demand testing. This legal framework turned the entire situation into a dead end for him. The very fact that we'd never registered our marriage had now become my legal shield. Ryan seemed to realize my strategy and flew into a rage. Don't think your little tricks can fool me. If you don't return my child, I'll let the whole world know you're a damaged woman nobody wants. I turned to the officer calmly. He's defaming my character and threatening me. Is this a legal violation? Since both parties couldn't reach an agreement, the mediation session ended in deadlock. The police could only issue a verbal warning to Ryan, requiring him not to continue harassing my life. I wasn't entirely satisfied with this outcome, but I couldn't think of a better solution for the moment. Leaving the police station lobby, the weather had suddenly turned cold with light snow falling. Ryan had rushed to San Francisco without preparation, wearing only a thin jacket, and was now shivering from the cold. Meanwhile, I stepped into my warm, clean car. I rolled down the window halfway and looked at him with complete contempt. You and I have never belonged to the same world. Take this car. For example, it's nothing special, just worth about $500,000. But with your salary, even without eating or drinking, it would take you several years to afford it. Wouldn't it? I understood Ryan's personality. Anything related to money would immediately trigger his explosive tempers. And just as I predicted, after hearing this, the last nerve in his head snapped. He furiously grabbed a rock and hurled it straight at my car window. The result was, we hadn't even left the police station grounds before being dragged back inside. Ryan tried to argue. This is a family matter. I damaged my own family's car. How is that illegal? I immediately declared clearly, I have no relationship with him whatsoever, and I will definitely press charges to the fullest extent. Ultimately, Ryan was sentenced to 15 days in jail for intentional property damage and destruction of others' belongings. The car repair costs would require a specific assessment, but estimates were no less than $10,000. Just hearing about the compensation, Ryan truly panicked. Outwardly, he was the model of a successful man with car, house, and good job. But I knew his real financial situation all too well. Not only did he have zero savings, but he was drowning in credit card debt, having to scrape together every dollar each month. Forget $10,000, he couldn't even come up with $1,000 now. Having exhausted his tough approach, Ryan began changing tactics. Appealing to emotion, we were husband and wife for a day, bound for 100 days. Victoria, don't be so stubborn. If I get a criminal record, it will affect our daughter's future too. I just smiled and replied indifferently. These future matters. The insurance company will contact you directly. When I returned home, my daughter was still sleeping peacefully. Looking at her small, serene face, my heart melted like water. I couldn't help but lean down and gently kiss her cheek. This was my flesh and blood, the treasure I would cherish for life. I would never allow her to have any connection with scum like Ryan Zhang. I would never give him the chance to get even one step closer to my daughter. I'd always had the habit of only sharing good news. So even with my parents, there were some things I'd never mentioned. Once, when I logged into the computer, I accidentally saw Ryan's search history that he'd forgotten to delete. If wife dies, can husband inherit her assets? How to legally transfer wife's savings account to husband's name. How to create difficult birth situations. Seeing those searches sent chills down my spine. I knew he wasn't a good person, but I never imagined he could be evil enough to want both my money and my life. I couldn't help but think back with horror. If the baby in my womb had been a boy, I might never have discovered his true nature and would have died in some vague, foolish way during Ryan's detention. His mother continuously called to curse and berate me, her language vulgar and vicious, every sentence filled with marketplace obscenities. I didn't get angry. I just quietly recorded everything as evidence. Instinctively, I knew this mother-son pair wouldn't easily let this matter go. And sure enough, a month later, my premonition came true. Somehow, she'd learned the location of our family business and showed up at our company with a group of media reporters. Staging a scene in front of the cameras, she collapsed on the ground, crying and wailing, tears and snot streaming. Victoria Chen is an evil woman. She stole all my son's money and hid our granddaughter so we can't even see her. My son only came to seek justice, but this woman conspired with her lover to beat my son severely. Now he's paralyzed in bed. Today, even if I have to die here, I'll get justice. Ryan's mother was the most skilled, dramatic performer I'd ever encountered. Crying, begging, threatening suicide, she'd used these tactics countless times. Having lived with her for a period, I naturally understood her nature all too well. But outsiders didn't know this. They could easily be deceived by a few crocodile tears. Despite the commotion, even though I promptly called police and dispersed the crowd, people still managed to take photos and videos that were posted online. The internet began spreading various rumors and fabrications. Even our business partners started calling to inquire. My parents were so angry they were shaking. Absolutely ridiculous. When did we ever hire people to beat her son? And stealing her son's money? Since when has our family ever lacked money? I just shook my head gently. Curiosity and gossip are human nature. Most people only believe what they want to believe. At this point, any explanation would be meaningless. To silence public opinion, I needed to strike hard. From the day Ryan showed his true colors, I'd begun quietly collecting evidence: text messages, recordings, videos, phone calls. Everything was carefully preserved. I'd done nothing wrong, so I had nothing to fear if the matter became public. They could go to the media, so could I. They wanted to manipulate public opinion. I could do it better and more professionally. I had money, connections, and my own media and legal teams. I immediately contacted our company's legal department to sue the mother-son pair for defamation and personal reputation damage. Then I collaborated with local influencers and contacted reputable media channels, posting rebuttal videos with official lawyer statements, declaring, "I will pursue legal responsibility to the fullest extent." Very quickly, the situation completely reversed. Ryan's true face was exposed to the public. The polish and refinement were just surface-level facades. His essence was that of a failed man who couldn't accept his failures. A would-be gold digger who turned vengeful when rejected a classic case of "if I can't have you, I'll destroy you." Internet users felt deceived and furious, and the power of public opinion began to strike back. In a short time, Ryan became a pariah that everyone condemned. Even his home address and workplace were doxxed by online vigilantes. Although his company wasn't a government agency, it was a well-respected firm in the industry. Ryan's behavior had seriously damaged the company's image and reputation. After weighing the costs and benefits, the company decided to terminate his employment. Hearing this news, I couldn't have been happier. Ryan had always considered himself a social elite, and this job was the main pillar supporting his fragile ego. Being fired would definitely be a painful blow to his pitiful pride. I adopted a watching the show mentality and contacted an acquaintance in the same industry to get inside information. They told me, "Ryan Zhang's reputation has spread throughout the entire industry. If he doesn't change careers, he'll never find decent employment again." And indeed, that's exactly what happened. After being fired, Ryan initially planned to rest at home for a while, waiting for things to blow over before making his next move. But his mother wouldn't have it. "You're sitting at home not earning money with no income. How are we supposed to live? Luckily, your Aunt Zhang invited me to do online sales. Just invest $50,000 as startup capital, then double your profits immediately." Ryan frowned. "Mom, I haven't found work yet. Please don't do anything reckless." His mother was displeased. "I already promised Aunt Zhang all sorts of things. How can I back out now and show my face? Besides, this is a great money-making opportunity. Don't you still have that severance pay from the company? I really raised a useless son all these years." With no other choice, Ryan gritted his teeth and transferred $50,000 to his mother. But that was just the beginning. More waves followed. That evening, Ryan's sister called asking to borrow money. "Little Tiger is starting first grade next year. I've arranged for him to get into the best elementary school, but we're still short on some connection fees. Can you transfer $50,000 to me first?" Ryan's sister had dropped out of school early to get married, and their finances were already tight. Now with a third child, life had become even more precarious. She frequently complained to Ryan about their poverty and hardships. Ryan, having always been the sole pillar of the family, tried his best to help whenever possible. But the situation was different now. Ryan said reluctantly, "Sis, I just lost my job. I don't have much money left." The other end immediately exploded. Ryan, you can't be ungrateful. If I hadn't dropped out of school to work and support your education, would you have what you have today? Now your nephew is about to enter elementary school, such an important matter, and you're going to ignore it. Do you know how hard I worked to secure this spot at the elite school? I'll pay you back later. Ryan knew full well that his sister would never repay the money, just like all the previous temporary loans. Once the money was gone, it was gone for good. But in the end, he still transferred the $50,000, and so, in less than a month, all of Ryan's severance pay had vanished completely. Looking at the pile of debt statements in his bank account, hearing the insurance company call demanding car repair compensation, he finally had a complete breakdown. A few days later, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Ryan. His voice was completely different from before, no longer arrogant, only flattering and desperate. Victoria, I was wrong before. I didn't know how to treasure you. You're the best person in my life. Can you give me another chance? I'll definitely make it up to you and our daughter. Didn't you want to get married? We can register tomorrow. Whatever kind of wedding you want, Chinese or Western, I'll agree to everything. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. Ryan Zhang, do you think you're a hot steamed bun that everyone's fighting over? Hearing this, Ryan quickly changed his tone. Even if not for me, you should think about our daughter. She's so young. She can't be without a father's love. Can't be without a complete family. I coldly interrupted. I can find our daughter 100 stepfathers. That matter doesn't require your concern. As soon as I finished speaking, Ryan immediately showed his true face, screaming like a madman. Victoria Chen, if my daughter ever calls another man daddy, I swear I won't let you get away with it. I couldn't be bothered wasting more words and immediately blocked this new number as well. Initially, I hadn't paid much attention to Ryan's threats, but a few days later, my housekeeper, who was responsible for grocery shopping, suddenly came to speak with me privately. She said that recently, every time she went out shopping, she felt like someone was following her from behind. I'm not sure if I'm being paranoid, but after thinking it over, I felt I should tell you. I seriously thanked her and sent her a separate bonus payment. It seemed Ryan was bolder than I'd thought. But thinking about it, it made sense now that he was drowning in debt with his career destroyed. He had no way out. In that situation, trying to force me back was probably the best move he could think of. I understood that to deal with someone like him, I needed to strike hard enough to make him remember and back down. But before I could figure out my next countermove, I received a call from the police. Are you related to Mr. Ryan Zhang? Please come to the hospital. Although Ryan and I clearly weren't related, I agreed to go out of curiosity. Moreover, with police present at the hospital, I didn't believe he'd dare try anything too outrageous. When I arrived, I found Ryan lying in a hospital bed, bandaged and receiving treatment. The doctor said he'd fallen from a wall, breaking his leg and requiring hospitalization for recovery. In front of the police, Ryan put on a tearful, emotionally sincere performance. I just wanted to visit my daughter in City A, but she wouldn't let me see her. She quietly took the child away, not letting my mother and me even look at our granddaughter. My mother cried until she nearly went blind, missing her grandchild, and I was going crazy with longing. Officer, I just wanted to see the child. So I tried to climb over the wall, but with his office worker physique lacking exercise, how could he possibly perform wall climbing stunts like an action movie? The result? He hadn't even made it halfway up the wall before slipping and falling to the street, knocked unconscious. It wasn't until early morning when sanitation workers found him during their cleaning rounds that he was taken to the hospital. Ryan's emotional performance might have fooled the police, but it only made me want to laugh coldly. He couldn't fool me. Visiting our daughter was just an excuse. His real intention was to kidnap the child and use her to extort ransom money from me. Although Ryan's behavior had touched the edge of legal boundaries, since no serious consequences had occurred. The police only issued verbal reprimands and warnings without specific penalties. Once the police left, Ryan immediately raised his head and gave orders. Go pay the hospital fees and buy some daily necessities. Stay at the hospital tonight to take care of me. I'd been holding back a belly full of anger, and hearing this made me laugh. I don't have experience caring for patients. I'm afraid I wouldn't do it well. How about this? I'll hire a caregiver for you. Ryan frowned. Fine, but you have to bring meals on time. I can't get used to hospital food. Leaving the hospital. I immediately called a phone number I'd seen posted on a telephone pole. Do you have caregivers available? I want your cheapest, worst rated, most poorly reviewed one. Soon, a large, heavy-set woman with a cold expression appeared. She spoke bluntly without pleasantries. I don't take paralyzed patients. Nighttime bathroom assistance costs extra at $100. Deposit $500 up front. I didn't bother negotiating and transferred $3,000 immediately, adding, the patient's family isn't local. Please keep a close eye on things. She took the money, but her attitude didn't improve at all. I was extremely satisfied. This was exactly the effect I wanted. Sure enough, after just one day, Ryan couldn't take it anymore. The water in his cup was ice cold. Meals were always late, and he could never find help when he needed the bathroom. At night, the caregiver's thunderous snoring kept him awake all night. He wanted to call me, but all his phone numbers had been blocked. Call home. His household was currently in chaos, too. His mother had lost all their money in a failed business venture with friends and was crying for Ryan to figure out a solution. His sister called in panic. Little Tiger was playing with firecrackers and accidentally blew up an expensive car in our neighborhood. What should we do? Right then, his phone buzzed with a text notification. Credit card payment due. Ryan glanced at it. His vision went dark, and he fainted on the spot. 2 days later, the caregiver called to tell me Ryan had discharged himself from the hospital. She also shouted, "He left on his own. It's not because I didn't take care of him. I'm not refunding the deposit." I just smiled. "No problem. Consider it your hard work fee." To prevent Ryan from continuing his stunts, I specifically hired someone to monitor his every move. But reality proved that Ryan was now completely broken down, with no time or energy left to cause trouble for me. Old debts piled up, and his mother and sister had added more stones to drag him down. His finances were now more ruined than watery porridge. Desperate, Ryan had to mortgage his house and then borrow from local loan sharks at high interest rates. But borrowing was easy. Repaying was impossible. Eventually, he was beaten until one leg was broken, with the warning, "Next time we see your face, we'll beat you again." Ryan, like a homeless dog, hurriedly fled with his whole family in the night, completely disappearing from my world. The next time I encountered Ryan was 6 years later. I was taking my daughter Emma to summer camp. The children, led by their teachers, were excitedly touring a museum. There were several staff members maintaining order at the scene, and I recognized one of them as Ryan. He wore a security guard uniform, his cheeks sunken, beard unkempt, his whole body thin as a rail. There was no trace left of the self-satisfied man from years ago. Ryan also recognized me, his eyes shocked. "Victoria Chen." I stepped back and replied coldly, "You've mistaken me for someone else." But Ryan seemed to go crazy. "Even if you turned to ashes, I'd recognize you. You are Victoria Chen." Just then, my daughter skipped over with a bright smile, calling to me. Ryan's eyes immediately lit up with excitement. "This is our daughter, isn't it? She's grown so big. Victoria, let's get back together. Give the child a complete family. We can have another child later, a son this time, and live happily as a family." At that moment, I had 10,000 curses roaring in my head, demanding to be released. But in the end, I swallowed them all. My daughter was still here. I couldn't let her be exposed to any danger. My daughter looked up at me curiously and asked softly, "Mommy, who is that man?" Ryan eagerly said loudly, "I'm your daddy." Emma blinked a few times, tilted her head, and said seriously, "You're lying. You're not my daddy. My daddy has to be tall and handsome. You look like an old man." This comment immediately made Ryan explode. He glared at me furiously and shouted, "You dare to cheat on me." Still the same hot temper, the same loss of control. Nothing had changed over all these years. I immediately hugged my daughter and stepped back, both frightened and suddenly struck by an idea. "Ryan Zhang, doesn't Victor Wang still not know you're here? Believe it or not. I'll tip him off right now. Victor Wang was the loan shark who had lent Ryan money years ago." Just hearing that name, Ryan's face immediately contorted with fear. I knew I'd bet correctly. Ryan had always been the type to bully the weak and fear the strongs. This personality trait hadn't changed even now, after confirming there was no more danger. I immediately called to report to the museum management. The manager angrily scolded over the phone, "If you harass visitors again, you're fired immediately. How long have we been training you and you still haven't learned anything? This month's bonus is completely cut if you don't want to work. Then get lost. We have plenty of people who need jobs." Ryan could only nod repeatedly, bowing and scraping, with none of his former arrogance or dignity. My daughter and I stood at a distance, quietly watching him. Emma looked up with her innocent face and asked, "Mommy, is he really my father?" From a young age, my daughter had been very intelligent. I'd never hidden anything from her, never waited for her to discover things herself. From the moment she could understand, I'd chosen to honestly tell her everything. I'd let her know that her mother and biological father had broken up long ago, but she'd never felt inferior or lacking because she received enough love to face everything with confidence. I said gently, "Sorry, sweetheart." Mommy's judgment of people wasn't very good back then. Emma nodded. "It's okay. Mommy, next time just choose more carefully. Besides, I still want a really handsome and cool daddy cooler than that man. Mommy, work harder. I'll help you screen candidates carefully." I burst out laughing and hugged my daughter close. In the warm summer sunshine and my child's laughter, I knew that life was truly just beginning from this moment forward.